This next discussion looks at the impact of online video gaming and one woman's mission to use her influence to normalize discussions around mental health. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can video games help us better understand mental health? Well, I hope you stick around and listen to this next discussion because Jessica, otherwise known as She Snaps, has a powerful story to share. Joining She Snaps is Ryan Jenkins. Ryan is an anchor and reporter for TMJ4 News, the NBC affiliate in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Thank you for joining us today, Ryan.
Thank you, Jim. I'm so excited to be here with you and with the Kennedy Forum. And as a fellow journalist, I appreciate the role that, we all have in ending discrimination when it comes to mental health and substance use. And I appreciate the opportunity to join in on this platform for change. And as Jim mentioned, I'm here with She Snaps today. She's an internet content creator, a blogger, a gamer, an influencer who has tens of thousands of followers who call themselves the Snap Pack. And she has been referred to as Mama Bear to the gaming community. She's one of the first people to utilize the streaming platform, Twitch, as a place to discuss some of the issues that are out there as they relate to mental health. So thanks so much for being here. And I can't waste this opportunity to say congratulations. I know you just had a baby, and Mama Bear takes on a whole new role when you have a baby. So thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited that I could be here today and very excited that the timing worked out well with the birth of my daughter. I feel very passionately about this, so I'm glad I could be here for this.
Great. So for those of us that are watching that maybe don't know what Twitch is, talk to us about this. What is this platform? How'd you get into the whole professional gaming world?
It's kind of funny because I love video games. I started playing this game called Destiny like 6 years ago, and I just got hooked in it. I was still working a corporate job at the time. I was still working as a photographer at the time. I still had like many other jobs that I was doing. And then as soon as I was done working, I would go home, go into my basement and just max out on Destiny for like the rest of the night, the rest of the weekend. And Destiny actually brought me to Twitch because there was something I was trying to figure out how to do in the game. And I had only recently heard about Twitch from my nephew. So I was like, okay, if this is an interactive platform, maybe I can go on there, find someone else who's playing Destiny, ask them for help, and then figure out how to get past this level or whatever it was that I was stuck on. And I went on on Twitch. And if you're unfamiliar with the platform, it's kind of like watching a YouTube video, except that there's a live chat along with it. So the broadcasters speaking to the camera, sometimes showing their gameplay, and then there's live chat that they look over and refer to every so often, respond to people in chat, and the people in chat are responding to each other as well. So I went into this broadcaster's stream to ask for advice on Destiny, basically, and I found out that this guy was just being a total goofball, like a complete and total weirdo on stream while playing this game to thousands of viewers. And I just sat there staring at it for a while, kind of baffled. And then I had that little thought of like, I could do this. I'm already playing the game a lot. Maybe I should see if I can make some money while I play the game too. So I just kind of gave it a shot and jumped in. And it turned out to be something that all of my previous work history and all of my other experience just really like lent itself well to. So I think I was only streaming for a few weeks before I quit one of the extra jobs I had and just went full send Twitch because I loved it. I loved the ability to form those one-on-one connections with individual people and to have the comfort and the stability that comes from having a community at your back. It's a really enjoyable place to be.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that community because I think a lot of times people, they sit there and they're like, how do people sit and watch a stream of someone else playing a game? But I mean, you have tens of thousands of followers. And I think, sometimes people miss out on that understanding that there's a level of intimacy there. There's a connection that happens. So share your thoughts on that. I mean, when you have this community following you, what is that like? And why do you think they're so engaged?
It's so funny because we get that a lot. Like everyone who streams online, especially those who have like a predominantly gaming focus, we get the question like, why would anyone want to watch someone play video games? Why do people watch people play football? Why do people spend half their Sundays watching people turn left in cars over and over again? You know, because you enjoy it, you're interested in it, and in some cases, you have enough knowledge that you can kind of view yourself in their position and have that like, oh, what would I have done there? But what I like to tell people is like, imagine that you're watching football, and after a particularly impressive play, either, positive or negative, something goes really right or something goes really wrong, you had the ability to send them a quick chat message and be like, what were you thinking there? And the player would actually respond. Because that's what we get. Some of these gamers are so highly competitive. It is just mind boggling to see some of the things they can pull off. And to be able to just really quickly send them a message and say, why did you do that? How did you do that? How can I do that? And then have them stop what they're doing for a second and respond. That brings this whole extra level to it. You're not just watching them. You feel like a lot more than a spectator. You're a part of the engagement. You're a part of the game, a part of all of it. And it's really fun to see how when there's like a big gaming event, like Destiny, the game that brought me to Twitch, when they release new raids in the game, people race to try to get their team through the raid first. So it's called World's First. It's a big deal to everyone who loves this game. And there are people who are so excited. They're flipping between streams, trying to figure out who's going to get it first. And then for weeks, sometimes months after, and I think even years, depending on how it went, people are referring back to that as this cool feeling of togetherness. Like, yeah, you remember when so-and-so's team got World's First? I was there. I was there to see how this person did this thing and then they succeeded. It makes you feel like you're a part of the action.
And that togetherness, I mean, so many people are searching for that right now. And the fact that you're able to kind of bring people into that togetherness is so important. And I know that your stream has really evolved to talk a lot about mental health as well. So what made you want to use the platform in this way? I mean, how did you get there? Where you're now not only connecting with tens of thousands of people playing a game, but you're also having conversations about mental health.
Oh man, it was honestly by accident. So when I first started on Twitch, I chose the name She Snaps for a reason. I was still doing photography at the time, so like snaps photos, and I was also still a really, really angry person. So people could expect to see me kind of rage out during these games sometimes or snap. And it was it was a really interesting time because I was pretty much always like tilted. Like I would go into these games, I would sit down and I was already a little agitated. So I was just kind of waiting for anything to go wrong so that I could put my anger towards it. And aside from the anger, I tried my best to mask everything else I was feeling, which was essentially how I'd lived my entire life. Like anger was one of the few emotions that I'd kind of been taught, that had been modeled for me growing up as an acceptable emotion. Everything else just push it away, push it away, push it away. So I started streaming and it's a goofy time. Like we have a lot of fun typically, and then I would get angry and then we'd go back to being goofy. And I started getting these messages from people, like private messages, DMs saying, "How do you do it? I don't understand how you can be so happy all the time. I don't understand how you're okay because I'm not." And it started to really make me feel terrible. The idea that by masking all of the emotions that I was feeling, which at the time I was still really suffering from depression, I still had really bad anxiety, I was still struggling with insomnia and obviously anger. So I started to think like, man, I'm really doing a disservice to these folks by making them think that I'm okay when I'm not. So I finally decided to have my first like mental health discussion stream. And I believe it was after the recent advent. They added on Twitch a new category where you could sit in front of your camera with your chat and just talk. They called it IRL initially, but now it's called just chatting. So there's no gameplay at all. It's just me sitting there and then, communicating with my community. So I did the first mental health discussion stream, and I did it from the standpoint of just awareness. I didn't have anything really to offer other than, hey, I see you. I'm struggling too. This sucks. Like, I know how it feels to be just miserable all the time. That was really all I had to offer. And then somewhere into like my first year of streaming or so, I started to recognize that there was a lot of room for me to make some changes in my personal life. I had left an abusive relationship where I was kind of like tiptoeing around all the time so as to not upset the other person and have their anger directed at me. Then I met my now partner, who's incredible, and we moved in together. And I remember this one morning, he was walking past as I was getting ready for stream, and I was upset. I woke up angry often at this time in my life. So I was upset about something, who knows what, something probably very minimal. And I was kind of slamming drawers and doing a lot of the heavy sigh stuff, just making it known that, everything was terrible. And I caught his eye as he walked past me into his office. And it was this look of like, I'm just going to stay away from this. And I realized, like, oh man, now he has to live in a similar way to how I did. I didn't direct my anger at him the way that my ex had done to me, but it didn't matter. It was still impacting him. He had to kind of tiptoe around me to determine which version of my girlfriend am I getting today? Am I getting the one that's really excited and happy to see me, or is she angry and I need to just stay away? So it was at that point that I had that like really important kind of revelation of, man, I am just sick and tired of being sick and tired and angry, and I'm not going to put him through what I went through. So I just kind of went to the internet and committed to working on myself, and I started with my anxiety and depression and all of the stuff that I was battling. As I started to make progress, as I found mindful practices and my life and mindset and everything completely changed, then the content of those mental health streams also changed. So instead of it just being like, hey, everything sucks, I feel you, it sucks for you, it sucks for me, it sucks for them, happiness isn't real, then it was like, okay, I know how you feel. I know how easy it is to think that everyone is suffering and some are just better at masking it. But it turns out there's a lot we can do for ourselves. Here are some of the things that I found that helped me. Here's the difference in my life from when I started to where I am now. And now they have a completely different tone to them. I offer 5 steps to better mental health, which is all the things that I did to help myself feel better. We talk about various mindful practices, and we do our best to treat each other as though we are a very real community, which we are, and offer some really mindful and compassionate accountability.
Yeah, and I know. I mean, what's incredible is you get so real and you get so raw with all of these people who are maybe experiencing similar things, and you open up about being over medicated as a teen and about your depression, and you just I don't you're very raw about it. So I wonder though, how do you walk that line between having these discussions, inviting people in, but you don't give clinical advice. So how do you walk that line?
It's an interesting question, and I get this kind of often, and I super appreciate how many people check me to make sure that I don't do that, because I have seen some people who cross that line very quickly. Like, there's in this day and age, obviously there's lots of misinformation going on out there. There's lots of people who will tell you how to fix yourself, fix your life, and it can just be really harmful stuff. So for me, I have actually consulted with a number of mental health professionals. So I'm a mental health advocate, mindfulness advocate, but I am in no manner a professional. I make that very clear. And I do regularly consult with therapists and doctors and people who know a lot more than me to make sure that I'm walking that line in a very safe way. If I ever feel a little confused about how to properly respond to something, I reach out right away. But otherwise, the majority of what I do for folks, what we do in the community, is just, let's talk about the basics. Let's talk about how to care for your body and your mind, not from a clinical perspective, but just from a mindful one. How do you feel when you eat that food? How do you feel when you do that thing? So it's a lot more about the kind of basic level of self-care that a lot of us just have not really been educated on. And I don't go into, like, if people ask me, hey, do you think I have this disorder? Please go talk to a therapist. And I regularly encourage people to seek out therapy. I regularly encourage them to speak to professionals. I have links in my chat to direct them to various resources in case they don't have the funds available. So I do everything I can to let them know, like, I will support you to the best of my ability, but I think you should also have a therapist. Like, everyone deserves that kind of professional guidance in their life.
And I mean, so many of your followers, they're young, and we know that youth and young adults, I mean, they deal with all types of things that are happening online that can negatively impact their mental health. There's bullying and violence and discrimination. And then you have COVID-19, and that happens, and there's self-isolation, and there's all types of disruptions in routine. We know that half of all Twitch subscribers are under 34 years old. A fifth of them are between 13 and 17. So how do these platforms maybe open up a door for people like yourselves, but also for these young people to connect with people like you, to talk about and think about mental health and substance use maybe in a different way?
I think that one-on-one ability through Twitch is really unmatched, because especially like as younger people, I can imagine how cool I would have felt if someone who I really admired would respond to me individually and take an interest in my life. I feel like that level of intimacy, I think, as you said earlier, using that word, is like just perfect for what we do. It's very intimate. I think that gives us a lot of room to use our influence for good. And what I really want to see as a shift in our gaming industry and the community is I want to see us start to shift away from glorifying these really unhealthy lifestyles. I think that we have a responsibility to ourselves to care for ourselves well, because we deserve to feel good every day, but also to all of these people, young and old, who are watching and who are thinking like, "Oh, see, I could do that and still take terrible care of my body. I could be the next big gamer, and all I have to do is have a refrigerator full of energy drinks, eat Doritos all day, stay in." Like, there's a lot of promotion of this grind lifestyle. Like, you just got to get on first thing in the morning, stay on until you basically are ready for bed. Don't eat good food, don't exercise. Outside, no, I hate it. So there's a lot of this, like, kind of making a mockery of caring for yourself and of engaging yourself in your life that goes on in our industry that I find to be off-putting. And I used to also do it. So like I really see it now that I'm out of it. When I first started on Twitch, I earned the nickname the Iron Streamer because that was me. I was on first thing in the morning and I would be on until late at night. I just ate crap at my desk all the time, drank energy drinks. I was doing 24-hour streams regularly, which are terrible for you, and then it started to catch up. So now I'm doing my best to advocate against those things, to encourage some of these folks to see that you can actually succeed in whatever it is that you want to do while taking care of your body. And if you could do really well without taking care of your body, imagine how much better you could do if you were well rested, if you did have a reasonably nutritious diet, if you went outside sometimes, got some exercise, and if you prioritized your mental health. So I think that's one of the ways that we could be doing a lot more for the people who we communicate with every day. We could be taking better care of ourselves to model good self-care for others.
Do you deal with a lot of pressure with people coming to you as you model that, as you're that example? Do you have a different understanding or appreciation in your role in that conversation?
Yeah, I do. There's there's people now who will send me messages when I've been offline for a few days, or like when I was on maternity leave, who will say, "Snaps, I was about to do this one thing, and then I heard your voice in my head, and I wound up going and doing this other thing instead." And that's like the best praise I think that I could get, is hearing that like someone was reaching for an energy drink and then they heard me yelling, "Hydrate, hydrate," and instead they went and grabbed some water, or they felt themselves kind of going into this distraction mode and they heard me saying like, "Go sit with it," and they went and did some mindful practices instead. I think that's so encouraging and so fun to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it shows the reality of the fact that, I mean, words matter, and you're in this position, but we are all in different positions to model better behaviors. And I know you talk a lot about finding balance in life, and a lot of the decisions that you make are based off of two questions. One, am I doing this to enhance my life? Two, am I doing this to escape my life? Talk to me a little bit more about those questions and how they fit into who you are and maybe how they can help others as well.
Sure. I mean, we there was a little mention of like substance abuse in the conversations around trying to be open with talking about mental health and substance abuse and all of that. And when I was really, really struggling with depression and anxiety and insomnia and anger and kind of all of that stuff, I used cannabis. I used marijuana as often as I could. So it was like, I'm feeling a little anxious. I've got to smoke. I'm going to go out and see people in the world. I've got to smoke. I've got to smoke a lot, because I would stress myself out about even just leaving the house, that I would end up pacing back and forth, smoking a lot, packing some for the road, packing some for the way back. And as I started getting into mindfulness, as I started to recognize that that was a distraction, not an aid, I started to realize that most of the time when I was smoking, I was using it to escape my life. I just wanted out. I didn't want to have to process anything. I didn't want to think about the stuff that I was dealing with. I just wanted numbness. I wanted the fun. I wanted the relief. And that didn't help at all. It's the same as if I were to use gaming. I would pour myself into gaming because it gave me an opportunity to not think about all the stuff that I was dealing with. But what I started to realize is that when I push it away, it's still with me. It's still there. And now, instead of me sitting and playing video games and feeling present and enjoying the games because I like the games, I'm playing the video games, and every time there's a pause, that stuff creeps back in. And then I would have to smoke again, or then I'd have to play the next thing. So I started to recognize that cannabis has a place in my life, but not as an escape. I really am a huge believer that we just have to go through it. The only way out is through, and I make that reference to my community often. If you want to get through this stuff, like, you just have to sit with it and start processing, do the work, whether you do it on your own or with therapists. But if all you do is kind of avoid it and go for the drugs, or go for the games, or go for any other number of coping mechanisms, alcohol, sex, partying, whatever it is that gives you a chance to feel like you're away from your problems, they're still with you. So I spent almost my entire life miserable. We briefly mentioned that I had a suicide attempt when I was younger. I, at that time, after realizing that it would hurt my family if I were gone, I committed to staying in this world, but I did not want to be here. I was really miserable. I was honestly just kind of hoping that I could get hit by a bus or something, so that it would take me out of the equation and I wouldn't have to be the one to do it. So at that time, in that mindset, I wanted escape. I didn't want to be a part of this life. But after I started working through my stuff, after I started kind of shedding some of these things I had been carrying around for so long, I have a new appreciation for my existence now. I really think there is so much beauty in life, even with all of its problems, even with all of the trauma that I've endured, all of it. So I want to be a part of my life. If I'm using something to enhance my life, I'm all for it. But if I'm trying to escape, I want to ground myself in the reality that life is still beautiful. There's so much more to it, and that I just have to sit and go through whatever it is I've got to go through to make it to the other side.
And I mean, the fact that you're using this platform not only to go through life and understand those things, from a personal perspective, but then sharing that with others, it's so impressive. So, I mean, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm wondering now, like, what can we take away from this? I mean, you started watching someone on Twitch, and then you're like, maybe I could do this, and then you start gaming on Twitch, and then you're like, well, there's more to this. There's an opportunity to use this platform to make a difference and to have people understand mental health a little deeper. So how can we walk away from this conversation understanding our role in this community and society?
I think anytime we look at ourselves, we have a tendency to think, what can I do for others? A lot of us would rather work on other people's stuff than our own. But, truly, we have to handle ourselves first. We can't pour from empty cups. And if we believe that our needs are lesser than those of the people around us, we're probably not giving them 100%. So if that's what it takes for people to start paying more attention to themselves, to recognize, like, hey, whether you believe it or not, you are not giving your family and friends 100%. There's just no way. If you aren't taking care of your body and your mind, you're only giving them this much, and you have so much more potential. So care for yourself well, so that you can care for others well. I know that's important to the majority of us. And my community and I, we talk about this stuff so often that I wanted to come up with a way to make it much easier for us to manage self-care without becoming overwhelmed. Because anyone who has struggled from anxiety or depression or any other number of disorders, anything can be overwhelming. Like, I had a rough day just this past week where placing a grocery order felt like it was the most impossible task. I was, running my hands through my hair and almost chewing on my nails, just sitting there staring at it blankly, trying to figure out how to just approve a list I had already started and put in a grocery order through Instacart. So it can be really overwhelming, and I wanted to make that a little easier. So we came up with this acronym that gives us some basic self-care guidelines. And the easy and very cheesy way for folks to remember it is to remember your future is so bright, you have to wear shades. And shades stands for sleep, hydration, air, which is like going outside, getting some fresh air, ideally seeking out green spaces, diet, which isn't dieting, it's just managing your diet. Do I feel good when I eat this? Do I feel bad? Does this give me energy? Does this make my tummy hurt? Just being more mindful. Exercise, which is not, Tae Bo or something. It's just getting 30 minutes of physical activity. And then stillness. And stillness is this probably my favorite part of that, this all encompassing category that covers all of the mindful practices: meditation, practicing gratitude, journaling, affirmations. Any number of those things would kind of fit into that stillness. So when people are feeling stuck, when they don't really know how to handle themselves that day, if they're feeling a little fatigued or a little grumpy, that's kind of like a good checking point. Like, go through the letters. Okay, how am I doing with sleep? Can I make some changes there? How am I doing with hydration? Can I make some changes there? When's the last time I went outside? Can I maybe get out of the house? I'm starting to like grow fur on me. I'm like getting mold from sitting in this chair for so long, It's just a way for us to go through and keep ourselves accountable, and it's something that I think is easy enough to remember that we can spread it around as well. So I think as far as like a takeaway, if anybody is going to remember anything that I share with them, I would love for them to remember shades and shoot for like 80-20. If you don't make it there, no shame. There is no need for shame or judgment when it comes to your mindful practices, to your mental health. But if you can try to make 80% good choices for your mind and your body, and then give yourself the freedom to just blob around with the remaining 20%, eat the bag of Doritos, eat the junk, laze around, have fun with your life, I think people will find that they have much more energy available for themselves, which translates to more energy for their passions and for those that they love.
Wow. And a final question, a lot of people, going back to kind of how we started the conversation, they don't get it. They don't understand why maybe their kids want to sit there and watch someone play games all day. So, there's so much conversation about, excuse me, there's so much conversation about cutting down on screen time. But then there's people like you out there having these conversations about mental health and about substance use and about mindfulness. So how do we talk to each other about using these platforms like Twitch for good?
Mm. I think the more we have places like this that are willing to give us a platform and a foundation to speak on this, the more we can kind of spread that mentality. I have noticed there's a tag on Twitch now where you can tag your channel as mental health. So people can see, oh, they likely talk about mental health or are open to those discussions here. So I am seeing a really positive trend online of people who are opening up about any number of things that they've dealt with. And I think as much as we in the position of influencers can encourage other people to talk about our own stuff, talk to your kids, talk to your families. We have shied away from these conversations to our own detriment for far too long. We are so far past that now. There is so much going on in the world. The last thing anyone needs is to see everything they see on the media, see everything they see out in the world, and then not have anyone to talk to about all of the turmoil happening within as well. It's just too much. So I think we should be encouraging each other and ourselves to work on healthy, open communication without judgment, lead with compassion whenever possible, and stop hiding this stuff. It's just so common. It's everywhere.
Well, again, thank you so much for sharing with us today and spending time with us. And thank you for all that you do to shine a light on mindfulness and mental health. I mean, the work you're doing is so incredibly important. And the fact that you took time to speak with us today, we appreciate it so deeply. So thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate being here. I love any opportunity to talk about this stuff, as you can tell.
Absolutely. And we love to talk about it as well. And of course, again, appreciate your time and your perspective.
Thank you.